It is now my pleasure to introduce the faculty speaker, Mr. Lane Gordon. Hold on. Mr. Gordon has been the student choice for our graduation speaker in 2003, 2006, 2009, and now again in 2013. 369, don't know what happened in 11. Mr. Gordon teaches English, theater arts, and public speaking. Speaking. There you go. I'll always remember that one. He has been a teacher at Lakeview High School for 12 years. He loves to sing with his brother, Mr. Black and Mr. Massey. He has sung the national anthem at many different basketball games during the winter season. There you go. You shouldn't have said that. I'll wait. I know you can't hear him anyway. Mr. Gordon's infectious personality, positive energy, and ability to bring about the best in anyone he teaches in English or theater departments places him in the top 1% of educators that I have had the privilege of working beside. His brother says, and I quote, "I continue to be amazed at Lane's growth, maturity, and accomplishment in his career and personal life. I'm so glad that the behavior modification techniques I applied to him as a kid, occasional butt kicking and complete domination on the basketball court, helped mold him into the strapping lad you see before you." Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Lane Gordon.
I guess when your brother is 5 years older than you are, domination on the basketball court is probably not something to be incredibly proud of. It is a legitimate honor to be here. And actually, I wanted to take a second just to dispel the rumor. The staff actually is not on Vine Patrol, graduates. Just wanted to clarify that and get that out of the way. Vine Patrol? I'll keep my day job as a teacher. Thank you. No, it's an incredible honor to be here, and I appreciate it. Bowser the dog had the life. He was the dog that had a family that all other dogs in the neighborhood were ridiculously jealous of. Now, Bowser's family let him go anywhere he wanted in the house. Not limited to the hard-floored surfaces, this canine could explore the comfort of the living room in the evenings when his family was gathering to watch TV, snuggled in at his owner's feet. He, too, could bask in the cool comfort of the basement in warm summer days, sipping from his water dish any time that he pleased. He was allowed to sleep at the feet of his master's bed, run free in the back and front yard. They bought him the best collars, groomed him at the best salons, and they even bought him clothes. That's right, clothes. Booties, jackets, sweaters. This dog literally had it made. Now, among the plethora of amenities that this dog provided, the best among them was his food. Organic, soy blend, expensive, delicious for a dog. Well, one day Bowser's masters were leaving for the day, and they filled his bowl as normal with an acceptable amount of food. However, instead of placing his food bag back up on the shelf out of reach, they accidentally left it sitting on the floor well within his reach and his snout. Well, we can all guess where things go from here. Bowser's instinct, his animal instinct, kicked in. And it didn't take long before he had consumed the entire contents of this bag. And when he was done, he felt awesome for a bit. And then nature started to take its course. His full belly turned into an upset one, and then it happened. Bowser returned to his now empty bowl and promptly expectorated the entire contents of his stomach back into his bowl, and over the sides of his bowl and onto the floor around his bowl. Well, he felt better, but now there was a new instinct brewing. Hey, I'm hungry again, he thought. His stomach was empty indeed, and he wanted to eat again. Oh, look, what's this, thought Bowser, an overflowing bowl of moistened, organic blend soy dog food? Well, I don't mind if I do. So he ate, and then he puked, and then he ate again, and then he puked, and well, you get the idea. So, they say that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over while expecting different results. Now, I don't think anybody within earshot of that story would think to themselves, wow, Bowser sounds like a smart dog. He seems, efficient. What a practical approach to life. Listen, Bowser is mildly insane and disgusting and acting on an instinct that's animalistic by nature, which is unfortunately completely normal for a dog. No matter how many times he tries to eat that bag of food, Bowser is not going to get a different result. But before we stand in judgment over Bowser, it's important to reflect on a very ancient proverb. You see, dogs were a part of ancient times, just like the choices of mankind. And the ancients, in observation of the dog, as well as mankind, came to this summation. As the dog returns to his vomit, so the fool returns to his folly. Let me say that again so it sinks in just a little bit. As the dog returns to his vomit, so the fool returns to his folly. So what causes the dog to vomit? Well, science tells us that canines have a tradition of throwing up from either gorging themselves or simply because they're sick. Well, that all makes sense, but listen, the greater question is why? Like, why on earth do they return to the very thing that makes them vomit only to consume it again? Does the dog expect a different result? Well, maybe the greater question is, do we as humans expect different results? You see, because that proverb isn't about dogs. It wasn't written to teach us the dietary cycle of an animal. The proverb is to teach us about our own human nature. As the dog returns to his vomit, so the fool returns to his folly. The fool, that man or that woman who never seems to get it, the person who we stand back and watch walk face first into a brick wall, collide, bounce back a few steps, and then walk right back into it again. We look at them and we say, how foolish. It's not difficult to find examples like this all around us. Criminals returning to prison after being set free because they're caught and arrested for committing another crime. Young children, no matter how many times they pound an entire bag of candy only to feel like crud an hour later, will still, when given time and opportunity, eat the whole bag again. It's like they just don't learn. It's the man or the woman who bounces from relationship to relationship, constantly seeking happiness, when in reality it will never be found in another person. Like dogs returning to their vomit, we are so prone to return to the very things that lead us down the roads of dissatisfaction, misery, despair, and failure. And we do it with this foolish notion that we're going to get a different result. Mankind's storied past proves this truth. Of all the forms of injustice in this world, the worst is a society that doesn't learn from its mistakes. In other words, a society that returns to its vomit. We can look at our own history as people and see example after example of mankind feasting on the very thing that caused them to get sick in the first place, not learning from their mistakes, not taking an honest look at the choices in their past, and letting that dictate how they pursue their future. So listen, what does this have to do with Lakeview graduation 2013? Why am I taking an opportunity like this to talk about dogs and vomit? Well, here's the deal. Ask me to be your graduation speaker, and you are not going to get a cliched phrase like, always follow your heart. Following your heart can be the dumbest and most dangerous advice I have ever heard. Because following our hearts, when left to their own devices, often lead us astray. Can following your heart be a good thing? Sure, sometimes, but you have to follow your heart to a place where those decisions are met with a fair sprinkling of logic and advice from those who you trust to be honest with you. If English 3 taught you anything, you should know that our hearts are selfish by nature and have often been the great cause of sadness in our lives. So don't just follow your hearts to an absolute. Instead, learn to know the difference between following your heart into fruitfulness versus following it by making choices just based on emotion. Ask me to be your graduation speaker, and you're not going to hear a line like, work hard and life will be full of successes and pleasures, because that's a lie. Regardless of how hard you work, you will never escape the brokenness of this world. Do everything right, and you will still be the recipient of some really tough seasons in your life. None of us will escape failure in some form or fashion in our lives. So, ask me to be your graduation speaker, and I am going to talk about dogs and vomit. because it's a word picture of what it's like in our lives when we keep returning to the very thing that causes us problems. And listen, not because I've got it all figured out. This probably won't surprise you, but none of us do. Not your parents, not your teachers, certainly not this guy. I've feasted on more of my own stomach contents than probably most people here. But we talk about this. We heed you caution because this is one thing that you can actually control in your lives. Whether or not you continually head down the roads of destruction and folly, when you know that there is a better way, a more fulfilling way to live, act, and think. And how do we all know this? Because we have been through it. Some of us, many of us in some areas of our lives are still going through it. You see, we've enslaved ourselves to bad habits, bad cycles of foolishness, bad attitudes. And there are those of you sitting in those seats as graduates whose choices over the last 12 years have, at times, been the equivalent of eating your own vomit. Maybe it was the cycle of procrastination you always approached your work with. Maybe it was the cycle of always taking advantage of a teacher's kindness. Maybe it was your cycle of always finding fault in people to make yourself feel better or cooler. Maybe it's how often you showed up to class. Maybe it's simple stuff like never believing it when people complimented you. Maybe it's the way that you never said thank you to your mom or your dad or your English teacher because they showed up day after day to help you regardless of your complete disrespect for them. But your cycle of foolishness has been a part of your journey. But listen, you sit there today because someone, a teacher, a parent, a grandparent, maybe even you were finally able to set aside your pride and listen to that still small voice saying, there is a better way, a different way, a more joy-filled way, but you have to stop being foolish. You have to change course. You may have to set aside momentary happiness like a nap during third block for pursuit of something more joy-filled like graduating. So what does this look like practically? Well, when you get up from those seats, how do we play this all out? Well, it can start by surrounding yourself with some people who love you enough to tell you when you're off in an area of your life, that will be honest with you when you are being a fool, that will speak loving but firm truth to you when you are throwing away talents, gifts, or even your life. Because, can I be honest, some of you don't have that. And it doesn't just come with age. Real, genuine maturity has nothing to do with how old you are. There are a lot of adults that don't have this clarity. Maturity is based almost solely on this issue. Are you mature enough to know that you need guidance, help, assistance, because we are all prone to foolishness? And more so, are you humble enough to ask people to surround you with that guidance? You see, the dog doesn't see the problem with eating his own vomit. The fool doesn't see their choices as folly because we tend to look at our own lives with blinders on, only seeing what we want to see. And it is really easy to surround yourself with people that won't challenge you, that won't speak truth to you, and that will join you in your meal of foolishness. But this needs to be your life now, especially in the world outside of high school. In some form or fashion, recognizing the things that are bad for you, dangerous for you, destructive for you, and in recognizing them, realizing that if they caused you issues the first time, scooping them up and trying to digest them again is not going to get you a different result. For some of you, it's going to take failing a class that you actually pay money for. For some of you, it will take monumentally screwing up in a job or with a friendship. For many of us adults here, we have had to fall pretty hard to wake up to the reality that there are areas in our lives that we need to be careful in, lest we find ourselves making really foolish choices. But listen, there is a better world out there, a world where you do actually listen to those who truly love you when they try to tell you that you're being foolish. Stop returning to your folly. Quit eating your vomit or ramen noodles, whatever, when filet mignon is being offered. Don't be the fool who returns to their folly. You have to be smart enough or humble enough to recognize when you are standing at the precipice of foolishness, and you have to learn to make a new choice. And please, please surround yourself with friends who will do the same. If you want to be different than Bowser, if you want legitimate joy, if you want a successful marriage someday, if you want to get through the next 4 years of your life, then surround yourself with friends who will support you and run from your folly. Be a generation that eats just a little bit less than we all did. And listen, don't settle for vomit when we have all of these great open houses to get to. I love you guys more than you know. Thank you.
Mr. Gordon, I'd like to present you with this plaque signifying your selection this year's senior class faculty speaker. Thank you.